wrong. Before we ever do, no hesitation.
Hey, welcome to the 98% Podcast, where we hear real stories from real people, and I'm here with Jon Kaus. So, John, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm 38. I'm a human.
Wait, really? Tell
yeah.
us more about that. What's it like being a human? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I've got 4 beautiful children, 3 boys and a girl. Best things that I've ever had in my life.
Okay. What do you do? What do you do for work?
Me and my wife actually started up a business in construction about a year and 9 months or so ago.
Okay.
And so far it's been doing pretty good. It's definitely an adventure, you know. It's a whole different world.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, because, you've always done construction for the most part, but you worked for someone, and now being your own boss, what's the big differences between those two?
Well, there's a whole side to it that when you're an employee, there's a lot of things that you don't come in contact with, like bidding jobs and, you're the face of the company, or, there's a lot more pressure to perform in that sense because you are responsible for the end result. I mean, not that when you work under someone that you're not responsible, but ultimately, if something did happen, you're not going to catch anything necessarily for that. That sounds irresponsible, but when it's your business, then everything directly reflects your performance to the client.
Yeah. So the good and the bad, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So, John, how do you know me?
Well, we've known each other for probably about 20 years, somewhere in there, I'd say.
I'd say that's accurate, yeah.
We met at youth church one evening. I believe it was over something to do with guitar. I don't exactly know. Someone said something about guitar, and it led to talking about that. And we had a little conversation about what kind of music we liked. And you're like, "Do you like heavy stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, I like heavy stuff."
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I play a little bit of Metallica. And looking back, that's obviously almost like a little inside joke for us, because in the world of heavy music, that's like not heavy at all. That's like rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's funny. Yeah, because we had a common friend, right? So we had Randall was like he was kind of like our connector. I don't know if he connected us or not, but he was definitely the connector because he brought you to church that day. And I can't remember if it was him or somebody else, but someone was like, "Yeah, he plays guitar," and I was just like, "Okay, cool, let's go talk." So I just chatted with you. We talked about guitar. Yeah, you play heavy stuff. You're like, "Yep." It's like, cool. And I think it was like maybe a week or two, and then I remember going over to your house and jamming, and you and I remember your brother Rocky was there too.
Oh yeah.
And both like, "Whoa, what is this? I've never heard that before." And I was like, "Oh," so we were just chugging along, which is kind of fun because you were playing. Because I think you were playing one and a couple other stuff from Metallica, which is pretty cool though too. Because that's the thing is we had different styles, and you had a really cool, clean picking style that I never had, which was pretty cool too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it goes for both of us. We never really had lessons or anything like that. Maybe someone showing us something here and there, and we kind of just figured out things for ourselves. Like obviously I watch some YouTube videos for like if you want to do a cover song or something and learn parts of it. But as far as like actually sitting down with the teacher, I don't think either one of us have ever done that. So it's kind of a self-taught, which can kind of be good for creating your own style, but it's also kind of bad, I think, because you have to figure everything out by yourself.
Yeah. It takes more time. That's what I noticed is it's, it's definitely a shortcut to learn from a teacher, but I wouldn't change it though. Like I liked developing at least what I did. And I also know too that I'm so I like doing things like that I really enjoy. And I know if I sat in a guitar class and they're trying to teach me some chords,
I'd be very
I'd be super bored. Yeah, I'd be really bored. And then you know, they try to give me songs, and I'm sure the songs they give me are stuff that I really don't care about. Like, I don't really want to play Smoke on the Water. You know what I mean? So, like, I just know that. So, like, I actually enjoyed the process of, like, really kind of figuring it out from its core, like, without knowing anything. Like, does this sound good? Nope, that doesn't sound good. That sounds okay. So I don't know. I think it's cool. And then getting to a place where you can kind of hear the songs by ear and kind of know where they're playing. But yeah, to your point, it was a long journey. And there's a lot of fundamental stuff that I probably could have benefited from, like tuning a guitar. I didn't even know, when I first started, I didn't even know what tuning was. I was just jamming on it. It's like everything sounds bad, but I'm just seeing what I could figure out. I didn't know how to change out strings, so I broke all 6 besides. I had 2 left, the 2 low end strings. So if you remember, I wrote a lot of songs at that time that were just with 2 strings. And then once I broke the last one, I had 1 left. I realized it was time to get some new strings. so yeah, but it's funny though. Like, yeah, I remember, I think we were talking about this the other night. Is like, I think Matt Donnelly's the first person who showed me how to detune a guitar, and I was like, wait, what? It's like, this is crazy. Like, what is this? It's like, yeah, that's what the tabs say. I wasn't even looking at what the tabs were or anything, but yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, you had much better fundamentals than I did, though. I think. I don't know. I think you at least knew the basics. Well, I didn't know the basics at all.
I mean, I knew tuning and stuff like that, and drop tuning. But like, as far as metal, like, I guess we kind of talked about this the other day, about like, I grew up not listening to like hardly any secular music. It was always like country, gospel stuff, and I just did not care for that stuff. And so when I did hear stuff like Metallica, it was like something completely different, you know. But I think that kind of didn't necessarily help me as far as being a metal musician, because the rhythms and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess it depended on which album, because right there, earlier albums Metallica was more thrashy, but yeah, some of the other stuff was a little more just kind of rock. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Man, there's something else I was going to say and I can't remember now. But, I mean, I know we jammed out a lot, I remember that. So you were always, like, coming over to my place. Like, almost
for
every
like
weekend.
Every single weekend for like, I don't know how long, like over a year probably.
Yeah, because we wanted to figure out, we wanted to try to write songs together and play. And, yeah, we play. I wish I knew how many hours we spent trying to figure it out.
I remember you were always a lot better metal guitarist than I was. So you'd be like, play this part. And I was like, okay. And so I would try it. We might stay up to like 2 in the morning going over parts. And then I'd be like, okay, I just got to take a break. That's all I can do for tonight. And I'd wake up in the morning and then like a lot of times nail it. And it's like the craziest thing. It's like my brain just had a reset or something.
Yeah, I remember that too. I remember waking up in the morning and like, hey, you got it. This is sweet. You know, we just jam out. I remember what I was going to say earlier is like, I don't think that I didn't have a good foundation in music necessirally, but I was good at mimicking. I've always been good at mimicking. I think that's why I could play a lot of those metal riffs without knowing like without really knowing what they were doing, but I could hear it and I could, okay, I think I could figure that. You know what I mean? Like that kind of flowed well. And I think about that in the rest of my life. I think I've just always had a knack for just mimicking things. So that kind of makes sense. But yeah, I used to come over all the time. I went over to your place a few times. You were my driver for a long time, though. I forgot we started before I had my license.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually why you came over so many times.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
I can't remember. But then I had my car for a while, though, too. I don't remember, but yeah.
I think that's about the time when I'd met you was that same year, just a few months later, I think you got your license. Because you had that orange Camaro.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got a bunch of leaves up in the intake on it or something. Remember that?
Yeah, because they put the plastic thing at the bottom. So I was scraping everything everywhere I went, and I was like, I don't even understand what that piece does. Especially because, like, I get it if it was a fast car. It just looked fast. It wasn't a fast car. It didn't need extra air going through it or whatever it needed. Like, it was just a normal Camaro.
It looked pretty cool.
It looked cool though, yeah. That's why I bought it, because it looked cool. But yeah, that thing didn't last very long. It lasted me, I think, 2 years, and then transmission decision, I had to get something else. So yeah, traded in for that HHR, because I was like, this thing will hold some equipment.
Yeah, that worked good for hauling music stuff around.
Yeah, and I kept it for a decade, but that thing was not very good. I guess if you look at list of cars, it's one of the worst rated cars that you could have ever bought around its time. Did it run
good and everything for you though, or?
I mean, it lasted to maybe 130,000, so it didn't last very long.
Well, that's not
also, I should note that I didn't do oil change as much as I should have, which does kill cars anyways. But yeah, the suspension was terrible. I was always like having to fix like suspension, struts, the little arm, like just all types of stuff was always
sway arms and stuff.
Yeah. Because it was just always, and I got to the point where I'm just like, nah, the wobble's okay.
Death wobble.
Just be driving and like on that side. I'm like, it doesn't matter, and I just drive. It was expensive. Well, luckily the parts were cheap for a car like that, but I hated changing stuff all the time. So yeah, it wasn't the best. But yeah, I mean, I had it a decade, which is longer than some people have their vehicles, but it did the job. What else? Yeah, we played a lot. We talked about this on our little special episode podcast, or I guess I forgot. I'm going to debut this one before the special episode, so stay tuned. But yeah, we were Cugula Corbus first, because that was a band name that I created with Matt Donnelly and Tony back in the day when we did the 8th grade talent show, and we did some talent shows throughout the thing. And I don't think it was till, I don't know when it was. It was I don't think I came with Nightmare Nevermore.
That was
until
a couple years.
It was a couple years after. Yeah, because it was after I wrote the song Nightmare, I believe.
Yeah.
Because that song was going to be called Nightmare Nevermore, and it was going to be like a homage to the band name. I think I remember Tony being like, you should just call it Nightmare. And I was like, well, yeah, that sounds pretty good. So that's kind of where that one came in. But yeah, so we weren't that for a while. But I like that name much better because it actually means something. Cugula Corbus didn't mean a whole lot of anything. But it sounded fun to say. It sounded Latin.
It sounded unique.
It did, yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to think of some other stories. Yeah, we did so much stuff. Because we recorded, we played a lot. You sliced your finger open that one time.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good one.
That was ridiculous. I just bought a new case pocket knife like a week or two before that, and I was like, check out my knife, I just sharpened it. And I had this crappy guitar cord that you could just press the end in and tighten it on, and it would like work. That's how it was made, I guess. Mm-hmm. But it all got like ragged on the end, so I'm like, oh, I better trim that back. And so I'm sliced my thumb like right to the bone, and then I'm like, oh man, I don't want to get blood all over the carpet and stuff, so I just like instinctively stuck it in my mouth. And then you're like, no, don't do that. I'm like, here's a towel. There's a towel, and I put it there, and then I was like, oh great. I'm like, now how are we gonna play guitar with my thumb sliced open?
It was so good. Dude, yeah, I remember that. That was a funny story. It's funny. The funniest part was that you announced how sharpened. I sharpened my knife. Cool, man. Yeah. And then you sliced your thumb open. It's like, oh, okay. So you were just setting really up the context of you cutting yourself.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Completely unintentional, but
yeah, we did that. We used to jam out a lot. I remember just listening to music a lot. I remember listening to music in your car that one day you were sleepy. You remember that? And
oh yeah,
we were just driving, and all of a sudden I'm sitting passenger, and I just noticed the car going a little into the center lane, and I'm like, and I look over, and John's like this, like out. I'm like, John, hey John, wake up! Oh, what happened? You fell asleep.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, that has been a problem that's plagued me for a long time, because like if I got to drive very far, and I don't know, it's like the road just makes me real tired when I'm driving.
I get like that.
So soothing, and then
I get like that now too. When I was doing a lot of trips for Nike, because I traveled so much, and a lot of times I'd leave. See, early didn't bother me. It was usually the trip back after I was already exhausted, and I just catch myself going cross-eyed and just like,
no. I know, and then all too well.
I hit the little side thing. It's like the whole, and then I started just like, you know what? Quick nap, pull over on the shoulder, and just lean back, take 30 minutes, and then usually it works. But yeah, there's been times where it's been like, this isn't safe.
Yeah. Oh, I know what you mean. It's no fun, but it's like, what do you do when you got to get somewhere? And
yeah, but it's funny. It's the older I get, the more I just want to sleep. I don't know what that's all about. At least when it comes to driving like that, because those are trips that I used to take. So I was in that role for like 8 years. So like that I had no problem taking. And then yeah, towards the last year or so, I was like, man, I'm just getting tired a lot. So I don't know. Weird. So that's why I'd call people or do whatever.
Yeah, that always helps if you can talk to someone or have someone
on
the phone.
So that's what I used to do, because otherwise I was just going cross-eyed. But yeah, that was funny. So yeah, you just fell asleep. And then you used to talk in your sleep a lot too.
Oh, yeah. I still do that from time to time.
Do you?
Yeah.
I just remember having conversations with you fully till like 4 or 5 in the morning, and you just like legitly like, yeah, man. Yep. Uh-huh. And like, just like you're really awake, and then talking to you in the morning. So about our conversation last night, be like, what are you talking about? What do you mean, what are you talking about? Well, what's the last thing you remember? You're saying I talked to you for like 2 hours? When you were asleep for 2 hours of our conversation?
Once I'm ready for bed, I'm like, lights out, quiet, let's go to sleep. Remember that? I was always...
Yeah, there's that. And then there was, I remember one time proved it. Because I remember we were at my house, and we were laying in the back room, and I remember falling asleep, and it was like the water heater or something random in my parents' house just started making this like crazy loud noise. And I'm just like, what is that? John, do you hear that? And you're like, no. I'm like, okay. So I was like, no, you have to hear that. John, do you hear that? No. Hey, you want to help me go check it out? Yeah, sure. And we get up, we go check it out. And then it wasn't until we get to the water heater where you're like, dude, what is that noise? You were asleep the whole time? You like got up.
But I didn't come to or something?
Yeah, you didn't come to until you were there. And it's funny because we looked at it, and then once you heard the noise, like, what is that noise? So you do hear it.
I don't think I've ever sleptwalked. Maybe I was just like really...
I don't know, man.
Tired or out of it, but I don't know.
That was funny. I just remember that moment pretty well because I was like, there's no way. And then when you said, like, I can hear it now, I'm like, okay, you were sleeping. That's sweet.
I don't remember that.
I mean, it's been a long time.
Tired, but I don't know. Maybe it just didn't stick in my mind.
Yeah. And then, yeah, what else? What else do we do? I know we played Nightmare Nevermore for a long time. You started playing guitar with me, and then we... I think we got Tony on board, and then we realized, like, we asked if you'd play bass, because we're like, if you play bass, then we have like a full band, right?
Well, and it worked out good because I'll admit, like, as far as metal guitar, for some reason it just didn't really click as much as I would have liked it to. Yeah. Which I don't know what that was all about, but as far as playing bass, it felt like I always could pull that off, decently. So
for sure, and the thing is too is those songs, they're not like easy songs either. You know what I mean? It's not like
that's true.
It's not like we're doing just bar chords and stuff like that. It's like we're doing some pretty technical stuff, so it makes a lot of sense. Because we had a few people we auditioned before we found Seth, and it just didn't work for some of those people because they're the same boat. And those were
you
great
definitely have to
too.
be a pretty solid player to play.
Yeah.
That stuff.
And the thing is I think the things you struggle with is the same thing that most of the other people struggle with. There's mostly the picking hand, right? The chugging, if I recall, right?
Probably like some of the rhythms.
Maybe some of the rhythms, which I'd say chugging and rhythms, which I think is where most people got stuck, because it's not something that they don't really teach you that. Like, you learn chords, you learn leads, you learn things like that, but I don't think any school you go to, they really teach you, palm muting and all that stuff.
Well,
right?
and that's I would totally agree with that. Like, it's something you kind of have to, I think, just maybe practice a lot to get it. And
I don't remember practicing a lot, but I know I did. Like, I don't remember, like, that was one of those things I just wanted to be good at, so I just kept doing it. But, we played there. Yeah, you played bass with us, and it was so much fun, because I remember all the wildness. It was so fun. Like, that was the best part, is I think every time I remember going to these gigs, and I remember just being like, what's John going to do today? Like, I was just always so stoked about it. So, because, I don't know. I mean, I told some of the stories in some of the other ones, but what's some of the stuff you remember that you thought was cool or fun or whatever?
Well, like, you know, getting in there with the crowd, like I had the wireless system I started using, and so that was fun. You know, my thought behind all that was, it's like, I know, you know, Tony's at the drum set, he can't really get up and move around. That's just the nature of it. And then you're singing and doing the vocals and playing, so you're tied to the mic for the most of it, part. Yeah. And so my thought was, it's like, well, I can do that, so that's what I'm going to do. That's something I can help, you know, to maybe bring us up a little bit and like you know, like make it more memorable and also like maybe dynamic. I mean, not that it wasn't, but you know, it's like just energy, trying to promote energy into the crowd, I guess.
Yeah, you did an awesome job at it too. I just remember, I mean, we've said the story a million times, but if they're tuning into this for the first time, the one where you headbutted the one guy was hilarious.
Yeah.
Just getting all crazy, and then just all of a sudden, just woo, and just whacking the guy in the face. And I'm pretty. Did he fall down? He like felt.
Yeah,
he like
fell down. I almost did. I was like, oh,
but he like, but you were still playing, and he got up, and he was just like, yeah, and we're like, oh, and it was funny because it was we were talking about this on the
totally
one,
unintentional. He's just really standing close.
Yeah, and it was funny because it was one of the bands we were playing with. It was their guitarist. It might have been their singer. I can't remember. It was Dustin Ivey, someone we know, which is super hilarious. That was the guy you just like whacked. You whacked the one guy jumping over the monitor at one of our later shows. That was so good. Because I didn't know anything happened. I just remember you like going wild. And then, you came up to the mic and you were like, and you said, sorry for whoever I hit with my bass. But you shouldn't have been standing there. And it was like the best, because like I thought you were apologizing. And I didn't even know why you were up there because I didn't see it because I was singing.
Yeah.
So you went there and did that, and then you said that. I'm like, what just happened? And that was so good. That was good. Yeah, you and Seth. Yeah, I just love seeing you guys go out there and be able to like get the crowd all riled up.
Yeah, when we got Seth, that was definitely a great addition because you know, he would get into it too, and he just, you know, I remember him saying, I'm gonna make one person's night, like I'm gonna focus on that person, and they're gonna have the best show they've ever had, you know. And he would just, you know.
Yeah, he's. I love Seth. Seth's he's such a good personality, right? Like he was like talk about fun. Like we had so much fun together, just chatting and hanging out, just telling stories. He loved getting the crowd all energized. He had a really good work ethic. Like he was like the easiest person to work with too. It was like, here are the songs. I mean, I did have tabs and stuff, but I wanted to help him be prepared. But it was like once I gave it to him, like he had no existing playing, I don't think, even in metal, and just like, okay. And he told me his story, and he'd just sit there for, he said, hours with a metronome just practicing. It's like, dang. It's because he wanted to make sure that he showed up. And I didn't even know this either. He told me too, when we had our interview, he said that he would get really like almost anxiety about it because he didn't know if he could actually perform in front of people, and he would have never known.
No,
because the way he showed up.
Once he got there, he's just like, woohoo, we're doing this.
Yeah, it was great.
I didn't really ever get nervous. Like I always felt comfortable. Like you know, but there were times I was like, man, I wish my ability was higher, or you know, I wish. Like at that time, like improv and like maybe adding to things, but I think the songs were always solid. So I mean, that was an issue.
You played great. Yeah, no, you played great. Did you ever? Me and Seth had this talk with this kind of debate, and we were chatting about it. Did you ever spin your bass at shows?
Did I throw my bass?
Yes.
I might have, but I know like when I played in my own band and had a guitar on, I would do that pretty often.
Okay. So I remember you got locking straps.
Yeah.
And I swore you did. Seth said he doesn't remember you doing it. He says he remembers you talking about it. And I was like, well, did he do it like when we were a 3-piece and not when Seth showed up? Was it when you got those really nice basses that you decided you didn't want to throw it? I don't know. I was always curious.
I always put strap locks on everything I've got, and that's because actually one time I had an Ibanez S series that I had like these plastic strap locks that held it on pretty good, but I actually did a throw and one of the straps, or the strap lock broke, and I actually cracked the neck on that guitar, which I liked it a lot. And so I was like, no.
Yeah.
But I don't remember with the bass. I would say I probably did do it a time or two, but I might not have done it very many times.
Yeah. Okay, so that didn't really settle our debate then.
Yeah,
we weren't sure. He's like, I never saw him do it. I was like, I'm pretty sure he did it. So
yeah,
yeah.
I know with the guitar I did do that.
Did you? Yeah. But I mean, guitars are quite a bit lighter too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. We also customized that 7-string.
Yeah.
Remember that? That was fun. So this was a fun story, and I remember we got it, or you had that guitar, and you didn't like the body style of it anyways. I remember you saying, like, this body style is terrible. Yeah.
Which I hated Tellies at the time. Now I love them. But I was like, this thing looks so stupid. Let's do something about it.
Yeah, I just remember being like, let's make a custom. And I think I drew a design or something like that. And then you're like, okay. And like, I didn't expect you to like say okay right away. And I remember you grabbing the saw and everything and just going to like.
We actually went to Orscheln's that day, and Eldon, I think it was, bought a jigsaw and came back and just started hacking.
Yeah, and I was just like, whoa, you were serious. Okay, cool. Because I think we drew the design on it so you could cut it out. So you did the cutting. I remember that for sure. And then and then I happened to be doing Votech or whatever. So I was in collision repair and was like, hey, can I paint a guitar? And they were like, yep. So I was like, sweet. So I remember we did that. But I remember you didn't quite sand it down, or you did, but like with some intense grit.
I think what happened was I sanded it down to like bare wood, and I spray painted it, but I didn't know what I was doing, so I like caked spray paint on it and just made it gummy. It wouldn't dry, so then I took like 80 grit and just sanded the gummy paint off.
Yeah.
Then I was like, here's this. And it was probably terrible because it was so
like
gouged
things out of it, and I'm like, oh snap! And I was like, okay,
and all the
contours. Yeah, the bad thing is I should have done. So what I should have done is I know they had a lumber class at Votech. I should have went there to get sandpaper, because collision repair, because they work with only paints and finish.
Yeah.
Like the lowest they had, I think, was like 2,000 grit.
Oh my god!
So I sanded that thing for like a week or so straight with 2,000 grit sandpaper.
Yeah, you need like.
I was literally exhausted. I was literally over there in the corner, and I'm sure the teacher was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm just like this, like nonstop for 2 hours or 3 hours of class.
So much work.
And I don't think I got it perfect, but I got it good enough where I was like, "This will do." Yeah. I'm exhausted.
I didn't know you put that much effort into it, but man, that would have been intense.
And then I painted it, and we went with gunmetal because I was like, "That's a sweet color." And it turned out good. I thought it turned out really well. I wish you still had it so we could show it. Do you have a picture of it?
No, I probably don't have a picture.
Dang, if you did, I was going to post a video.
I ended up selling that thing on Craigslist for I think like $175 because I only paid like $150 for it. And then get this, I saw it in a pawn shop like 2 or 3 years later, and they had it marked for like $600 or $700. And I was like, what? I'm like, someone made some bank on that.
Dude, and it's a custom. It's a one of one.
Yeah.
Man, I wish we still had that. I wish I had money to buy it from you, because I would have totally bought it from you. Because that thing was sick. And we called it the Raptor. I remember that. But and I can't remember what the body looked like because it's been so long. But I remember we did a real edgy body on it. It's really cool looking.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sweet. So yeah, we created an instrument too. Customized guitar, I guess. Yeah, and then it was fun. Yeah, we played I think we played 8 years. I think As Nightmare Nevermore on and off. Obviously, we played a couple years before, just kind of figuring stuff out and seeing what we could do. But I had a good time. I thought it was a fun time. I think we had the right people. I just think about, you, Tony, Seth, and it was just a fun group of guys. Like, it was fun. Like, whether we played or not, or just hanging out, it was always a good time. So
I don't think we ever had an argument or a problem.
Yeah, not really. We just had fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone was pretty positive, and we got together to play. It was just, I mean, we'd goof off a little bit, but that's just, if you were only business serious the entire time, that probably wouldn't be very fun.
No, yeah, and I think the only thing, like, I tried to find the balance, because it's, I mean, like, I wanted us to be good, like pretty solid, but also, like, I just wanted to also have fun. Like, once we figured out the songs, it was just about having a good time, and, like, yeah, I remember Seth and I would always try to squeal whenever we could on the guitar. That was the best time. I don't know why. I don't know why that made me laugh so much, but we would just sneak them in as as fast as we could in any song, and we would just laugh nonstop. Too bad we couldn't bass squeal.
Yeah, might be able to, but I don't know.
Maybe some harmonics, but
yeah,
that was fun. Cool, yeah, good times. So how we're going to do this, John, is we're going to go through a list of questions. I sent them out to you in advance. And the goal is for the audience, right, just to kind of connect with you and your story. And you can go as in-depth on questions as you want. You know, obviously we're not going to pry or anything like that. But, yeah, this is just kind of a fun little thing we've been doing. And I think you're going to be guest number 20, I believe. So, which is kind of cool. So here we go. You ready for the first one? Start at the beginning.
Okay.
What was growing up like for you?
Well, I am the youngest out of 7, so had a big family. Just, you know, my parents never got divorced or nothing like that, so it was my biological siblings and parents. We were raised very strict Christian, and which I'm grateful for that, because, you know, I don't feel like I'm a super strict Christian myself. I mean, well, I try to follow, you know, Jesus as much as I can with, you know.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, I'm not trying to go on a rant
Yeah.
about that, but my dad was, he did construction, and my mom, you know, was mostly at home, but she would do some work with my dad occasionally, and then she would, I remember she worked at Mid-America Dairy or whatever. She did that for a couple years. And so growing up, I mean, we weren't super wealthy by any stretch, but I think we made the best of things, which, you know, I don't think that really matters so much. We had a pretty strict upbringing, which I think builds character. I mean, you know, if we did something, we'd be getting spanked for it, which it's just whatever. I mean, you know, not saying that you have to discipline your kids like that, but I think discipline is definitely important for, you know, the structure of a kid. Being the youngest, I feel like my siblings, you know, some of them were kind of ornery, like to pick on me.
Yeah.
I think that's just normal. Older siblings always kind of pick on the younger ones. And, well, that's the majority of it. I work, you know, like, I do construction. I kind of did that my whole life. Like, started out with my dad, and then went and worked with my brother. He kind of started his own business, and I worked for him for 11 or 12 years. And then that's when I kind of started my own. He actually got in an injury, crushed his heel, and couldn't really do stuff. So I kind of branched off on my own then.
Yeah. You did a lot of fishing and hunting and stuff too,
Oh,
right?
yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess thinking about it like that, yeah, my dad's a big fisherman. He loves fishing and hunting, and we were raised, you know, doing that too. Like, the biggest catfish I've ever caught was a 48-pound catfish, so a pretty nice one. But my dad's caught like 70 and 80 pounders, you know, like he's definitely an outdoorsman. He loves that stuff, which I like it too. I take my kids hunting when I get the chance to do that, you know, and they like it. I think it's a nice heritage to have with your kids, you know. I mean, not everyone has to do that. That's just kind of something I shared with my dad, and so it's special to me. And so, you know, but yeah.
Yeah. So, quick question. Did your dad catch those big catfish by noodling?
Nope.
Sweet.
No, rod and reel.
Nice. I mean, I knew he didn't noodle.
I mean, we'd set trot lines through the summertime occasionally, and catch some nice ones like that too. But But yeah, I mean, it was just, it wasn't necessarily like for food. We weren't like, we have to catch fish for food. It's more of like the hobby of
sport.
Yeah.
So did anybody do noodling in your family?
No.
Okay.
Not that I've ever known. And I don't think Missouri allows noodling, actually.
I mean, if you get caught. If you don't get caught, right? I guess.
Well, that's kind of with any crime.
It seems
but,
that's true.
Yeah,
yeah. Because I know it's dangerous. I just that concept seems so silly to me. That's why I bring it up, because it makes me laugh. That like you'd go in the water, you put your arm in a hole and hope something bites it, and you pull it out.
Yeah,
that seems sketchy.
It does seem sketchy. Like I've seen videos of people doing that, and like. Some of them, if you get a real big catfish on your arm, it'll twist you up pretty bad.
I'm sure.
They have like sandpapery mouths, and they'll, if you don't have a glove, they'll skin up your hand too.
Jeez, I just imagine reaching in and getting a snapping turtle or something.
Yeah, and that's
like
always,
that.
I think everyone's fear in doing that is to get a finger crunched up or bit off.
Exactly. Jeez, that's crazy. Yeah, so you did a lot of that. The funny thing too is I always remember your mom was like the sweetest. I always remember going over and like, she'd always ask how I was doing. We'd have these really cool conversations. I just remember always going over. She seemed like the sweetest gal.
Yeah, yeah. My mom's like, I mean, everyone thinks their mom's the greatest mom in the world, but you know, for me, she most definitely is. I mean,
yeah, sick.
Yeah, I couldn't get a better set of parents. I don't think. I mean, me and my dad clashed a lot growing up, and I think it's because we're so much alike that. I think that's what it comes down to. But now we get along. Like, you know, in my teenage years, I was kind of real mouthy to my dad, and I wish I wasn't. But, you know, becoming an adult, I kind of realized my mistakes of being like that to my dad. And so, I mean, I've talked to him about it and made peace with all that. Like, I was just being a silly kid, and I should have had more respect for you. I appreciate you know what you did for us, and you know, I mean, I think parents are always, you know, trying to do the best by their kids that they know how to, and we're people, you know, and so sometimes we fall short too, you know.
Exactly.
So there's a little bit of grace with that, and you know, I think my dad, from what he came from, I mean, he's told me stories about like having to go kill squirrels so they have dinner, and working a job, you know, to provide food money for him. So he came from a really rough, you know, history himself, and so you know where he started and where he came to is a world of difference.
Yeah.
So I respect him a lot for that. You know.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, your dad was always really cool too. Always striking up conversation. Yeah, they always wanted to know how I was doing. It was always really cool. So what was one of your favorite moments you remember as a kid?
I don't know. I guess like I remember for when I was 14 for Christmas. I mean, I guess Christmas, you know, would always probably be a good time. I remember getting like a PlayStation. That was like the first year that came out. My mom said she waited in line for like hours so that she could get one for me, and then she got me like 5 or 6 games and a TV to boot. You know, I was only 14, so we had one TV in the house at that time, and I got one for myself and a game console and like 6 games. So I was just like completely blow my mind awesome when I was a kid, and so I, you know, was a pretty hard gamer there for several years because of that. But I think that was probably, I feel like it kept me out of trouble because I kind of got nerdy and go home, play my games. I didn't care about doing other things, and like, you know, plus I lived out in the country too. We lived on like 25 acres, so we didn't have a lot of, well, I mean, we had neighbors, but they were like 1/8 of a mile and 1/2 a mile, you know, to the other one. So, you know, I think there was an older lady that lived about 1/8 of a mile to the left of us, and then I actually had a buddy that was probably about 1/2 a mile, Alan Crown. I think, yeah, I mean, you probably remember him. But yeah, we were real good buddies growing up, and so I'd walk to his house sometimes or ride a bike, Yeah, we'd play games together, and so that was kind of a big core part of my childhood, video games and stuff.
Yeah, I think as a kid, I think gaming is like, it's one of those things, because I don't play games anymore, but I did. And I remember, Super Nintendo, first time I got that. I remember playing Donkey Kong like none other, and Killer Instinct nonstop. But I think it was the PS2 that I got, because that was the next console I got. I remember just being like, playing like Tekken Tag all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember going through that stage too, and I felt like it was so much fun. But I don't know, you can do that stuff as kids because you don't have a lot of responsibilities. You just play nonstop. But I remember that too. That was definitely a special moment for sure. Yeah, games are too complicated these days. Sorry, not too complicated. Too much of an investment. For me, anyways. So that's why I'm like, oof, I got other things I need to do, and I have way too many things that I'm always into. So it's like, if I do that, then I sacrifice all this other stuff I want to do.
Yeah, totally. They're not very efficient use of time, but they're a good distraction for sure.
Yeah.
Like I'll still play, since I have 3 boys, 14, 12, and 9. They all like to play Call of Duty, and so I'll play Call of Duty with them too.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a cool little family thing.
Yeah, it's definitely, if it wasn't like the bonding time, it'd totally be a waste of time. But,
and I get that some people play it. Maybe that is some people's thing, but I think you definitely need to limit it sometimes, because I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's, it's
like anything.
A lot of other things you could invest time in.
Exactly. Yeah.
So more efficient.
True.
Or beneficial.
Okay. So, next question. So, what's the biggest struggle that you've made it through?
I don't know, because I guess you could equate that in a lot of different ways. I feel like I really haven't had a lot of struggles in life, really. I mean, I remember, I don't know, I guess it kind of depends. I remember like being a teenager and just being really hard on myself about a lot of things, like being super critical of like the way I viewed myself. Like I remember like in high school, I didn't start driving until I was like 18 actually, and so that's about the time you met me, because when I started driving, I started going to youth. But I was really hard on myself about that. I was like, man, I'm such a loser because I don't drive. I actually bought my truck when I was 16, but for some reason, getting a license, just didn't happen until I was older, which, I don't know, maybe my mom was just like, I don't want my baby boy growing up or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what that's about. But, so I was really hard on myself, like thinking I was so uncool because everyone else was driving and had vehicles and this and that, and I felt like I was behind everybody. But then when I actually started driving, I was like, well, like half my school doesn't even drive, so I was like, man, I was being so hard on myself, and I was like, that was silly. But I don't know if that's necessarily a struggle. Maybe just self viewing, and I mean, I try to always be a realist about things and see things as accurately as I can for what they are. I mean, obviously, you always have your own perspective versus other people's perspectives, and it's not going to always line up. It's like trying to be unobjective, I guess.
Yeah. So where do you think that harsh criticism came from?
I don't know. My dad is fairly critical about things, like working with him. He wasn't really directly critical, but I mean, like if you did something that was not right, he'd be like, "Oh, you got to redo that." But he is also the kind that would like, I don't know. He'd always say, "If you're not making mistakes, you're not doing anything," and that's kind of true. And you learn so much from a mistake.
Exactly.
But it's so much easier if someone can tell you, and you can avoid the mistakes. But yeah, so he would just let you loose on something, and then you would just kind of have to figure it out for yourself. But if it wasn't right, he'd be like, "Oh, that's terrible," or
Yeah.
But I mean, he wasn't like, super critical. Oh, I mean, he's critical, but not like super critical. Maybe it's just me taking it more upon myself.
Yeah. Gotcha. Is that something you still feel like happens from time to time?
I think that I try. Well, like I said, I try to be a realist. So, like, I could write a song, for example, and then I'm like, well, that's not really good. I don't think it's very good, and so I'll judge it harshly and be like, that's not good enough to record or something like that. Which, by any standard, you can listen to a song on the radio and be like, well, that's not very good, or you can be like, well, actually, that's got a lot of nice things about it. I think it's the perspective, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for the most part, I feel like, no, I'm not critical like I was. But then there's still always that degree of like trying to be honest with yourself, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, the reason why I was asking those questions, I think that's something a lot of people deal with. I think a lot of people deal with kind of, I guess you could say, being self-critical, could be negative self-talk, depending on what it is, right? Depending on the situation. But, because I think I think everybody does it to a certain extent. I mean, I remember doing the same thing. And I'd say I like to think I'm a realist, but I think I definitely lean towards the positive aspect. I'd say I'm probably more positive than I am realistic sometimes. But yeah, I remember dealing with stuff like that too. And it's always interesting. I always like to ask that because I know they've said too, is like, I've heard a lot of people say like, well, whose voice do you hear when you hear those critiques? And they say a lot of times that's usually where you got it from. So if you think about hearing that voice in your head, that self-criticalness, like, is it your dad's voice? Is it a brother? Is it your voice? You know what I mean? They kind of tell, like they say that it can tell kind of that. And I don't think mine was ever tied to any specific person. I think it was more of just me looking at things.
Something internal.
Exactly, yeah, something internal. And it's funny because it was never something that was, I don't want to say I think it ever derailed me, because I think a lot of times I would act even if I didn't feel good about it. But there was definitely some times, I'd say for sure, where I didn't feel as confident as maybe I put off to. So, yeah, so I get that.
I know, like, probably around the time you'd met me is when I kind of I used to be a real shy kid. Like, I remember, like, 10th grade year, I don't think I said, like, 10 sentences the whole year to anyone besides maybe, like, a teacher about school stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I hated that at that time about myself. I was like, man, what am I doing? I'm like, life is not very enjoyable being like an empty shell of a person, it felt like. And so I told myself, I'm like, you're just going to have to figure out a way of interacting with people. And so I kind of broke out of my shell, and like, it's just like this crazy, zany, spontaneous character. I mean, like you at a WoW, I was always acting silly, and
yeah.
I think that was part of just trying to find myself, like, or an identity that I could, like, probably overconfident about things, and which, I think it kind of helped balance me out from going from like no confidence.
Yeah.
I went to like, I'm king of the world confidence, and then kind of finding the balance between that. I think that's just something I went through, or had to go through to kind of hit the medium of.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I always remember there was like home John and there was social John. There was like social John was like what do you guys want to do? Like, just like I remember we got kicked out of McDonald's.
Yeah,
that's my favorite. That's one of my favorite stories. Okay, here we go. So we so I used to do this thing where I would wear a coat and I would like to pull my pants up all the way to where it looked like I wasn't wearing pants. I don't know why. I just like being funny, I guess. Yeah. So I did that, and one day you're like, yeah, I'll do that too. So we did it, and we go on the line to order at McDonald's, and I can't even exactly remember what they said. Did they say like, you can't be here, you can't do that, or something? What did they say?
I had a big gold coat.
I remember your gold coat, big time.
I wore that thing all the time, which was so. My brother-in-law got that for me for Christmas, which it was like, I don't know what he's thinking because that was not my style, but it was nice and warm. It's like a gangster coat, like these big pillow pads in it. I don't know, but yeah, it was kind of hit me like mid leg, and so when we pulled our pants up around our legs, it looked like all I was wearing was the coat, and maybe they thought
both of us. That's why we did that. But yes, I actually remember. I think the lady, because it was a lady, and I think she said, "What are you doing?" And I'm pretty sure she said it like that. I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, what are you doing? Like, you guys can't be in here." I'm like, "What do you mean? We're wearing pants." And they're like, "I know, you need to get out of here."
Yeah.
What? So
I don't know if she had authority to really do that. We were just kids.
So yeah, we left upset. We left kind of upset. Like, what? Who does she think she is? But it was just funny because we were like, why did we do that? I don't know. But yeah, that's the stuff we used to do for fun.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah,
I remember putting my nipple on the window. Some of the girls in youth, like, and they were just horrified at it, and I was like, not that big a deal.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just being silly.
I mean,
and then
I can see it.
I have like the hairiest werewolf butt ever.
Yeah.
I was always showing that thing off to everyone.
Yeah, you put it on my passenger window once.
Probably.
I think it might have been even the same day we got kicked out of McDonald's because it happened in McDonald's parking lot.
Definitely could have
been. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, that's funny. There's that, but that's what was funny is I always liked that is that we had like your social John that like you were game for anything, so we would just be goofy and fun and do whatever we wanted, and then we'd have like otherwise it's like home John where it's just like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah,
doing pretty good.
Like the
just like
trying to make myself like be seen, I guess. So
yeah, we had good times though. It was fun. But and the same thing showed up in concerts too. We used to say that is like you were very kind of like soft spoken, and then all of a sudden like the music would hit, and you just be like throwing feet and all types of stuff, and we're like, yeah, it was pretty cool. So those were good times. Okay, so what's something that you're currently going through that's positive or negative?
Well, like kind of the business thing, which it's a whole different world, like I'd said. Like it always, the term feast or famine is what comes to mind. It's like, seems like you always get like 5 people calling one day wanting stuff done, and then you might have a couple weeks where you have nothing to do. And so, coming from working like 8 hours every day, day in, day out, you get used to that pattern, and I love that pattern in the context of like having something, you got your plan of you're going to do something, you got it. And then like now it's like, if I'm sitting at home and nothing to do, I'm like getting cabin fever and like, which I mean, I'll take the boat out and go fish sometimes, which is kind of nice. But after you go fishing a time or two, you're like, okay, I'm ready to get back for, which you don't have, you don't really have any control over that. It's kind of like just the market, and obviously word of mouth is the best advertisement. So I feel like obviously as time goes by, that'll probably balance itself out a little bit more too. It's kind of just probably the early stages and stuff. But we've actually this year has been pretty good actually so far, like as far as staying busy. And like I always tell everyone, I'd much rather be busy working than just sitting around doing nothing. I feel like I like to have progress. I want to be making some sort of progress.
Yeah, makes sense. And yeah, and you have this. So it's so pros and cons, right? So it's like your own boss. You kind of do your own schedule, but then also there's something nice about the structure of going to work every day, right? Yeah. And they say that too. They say that like being an entrepreneur and having a business, they said there's this weird dynamic. They almost cross. So they said like when it comes to like the risk factor and stuff, they say like being an entrepreneur is really tough at the beginning, right? Being a business owner. And they're like the other jobs, like your normal jobs where you work for someone, they're like a really risk adverse when you start. Like it's not that big a deal. But they said with time they actually cross, right? So what happens is like you being an owner actually is less risky because you've already established yourself, you have your stuff going. Whereas the older you get, you tend to like your 9 to 5 job becomes more and more risky, which is really interesting to think about, which makes sense. I mean, I think about even in my shoes. I mean, I was with the company for 16 years and was pretty stable. I loved the job, but then it just takes one day for them to be like, hey, your position doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and that's got to be definitely a big negative to that too. I mean, I guess, if you climb up a ladder and you get to a point, and then if they cut that ladder down, that obviously is not a good scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, like you're saying, with the context of if you own your own business, then it's kind of like as far as you just keep climbing, the ladder, or you start out on top and you just hold on, and I don't know. I guess that's maybe not the greatest.
Yeah, it depends on the business too. So Nike's not like this, but I know a couple businesses, like you can think about it, like the older you are, like people tend to, especially in certain jobs, they're looking for younger people, right? They can last longer in the position. So the older you get too, I mean, the more it is that.
I guess that's true.
That's the case, depending on the job, right? It depends on how people focused they are or whatever. But so it's
having younger, fresher faces looks better on a lot of companies.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, I mean and sometimes that's a demographic. I mean, if even Nike, they hire people. It doesn't matter, but for the most part, like they're still their target demographic. The people that tend to work there are like, you're talking college students.
Yeah,
right? That's usually the normal demographic, and for most places that's the case because that's usually where your entry-level jobs come in, right? Your sales associates, things like that. That's kind of where they fall, and tend to, if you're older doing a sales associate job, I wouldn't say it's frowned upon, but it's not as common, right?
Well, I mean, that completely makes sense because the bulk of people that are buying products, it's for kids.
Yep.
Exactly.
Like, the target demographic was for like 18 to 22 or something like that was like target. So it's interesting. But so keep it up. It's going to get easier because that's what they always say is like you figure out things and you'll eventually make it stable. And because you're your own boss, like it's just going to be stable for as long as you decide you want to keep doing what you're doing. So, which is nice. Okay. So who is someone who has changed your life that doesn't know it?
I don't know. I would think most of the people that have changed my life would probably know that they have. But are you talking about like maybe someone famous that you?
No, it could be anything.
Or someone that you know personally.
Well, I mean, it could be either. You can do both. But like the reason why I say that is because I think there's a lot of times where, because we might assume that someone knows they changed their life, but a lot of times we don't tell people, right? So like I know there's plenty of people that, like when I was thinking about this question when I created it, was like I just knew that there was a couple people in my life that I'm like, you know what? I've actually never told them how much they impacted my life. So that's kind of more what this question is about, is maybe someone that has had an impact on your life that maybe you've never told them before, or it could be someone that's famous that just their teachings have helped you. So it's up to you.
I don't know. That's a tough one because I try not to, I mean, like as far as famous side of it or people that I wouldn't know, I try not to, I wouldn't say idolize, but make a hero out of anyone. Because we're all just people. Even if you've done great things, you're still someone that things fell in place, or courage, bravery might have led you to do that. And then I feel like all the people I know, it's a pretty tight-knit group.
Yeah.
And so that's a pretty tough one to pinpoint. An individual that would have affected my life, but then they wouldn't have really known that they did. Because I would, like I said, I think that pretty much everyone that's had a major effect on my life would know that they had.
Yeah. Let's give some examples. We've had guests talk about coaches, teachers, nephews, children. Like we've kind of had it all over the place. If that helps at all.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess in that context, like your children, they might not really acknowledge or think about it, but yeah, they definitely shape your life in a huge way. And having someone that you're responsible for, definitely alters your life. Yeah. So I would encourage anyone that doesn't think they want kids to reconsider, because the greatest treasures in your life are your children. I mean, the little versions of you can kind of see, oh, that's kind of something my grandma had a trait like that, or like their little behaviors and their, it's literally the past generations you love, they're living through you and in your children. So yeah, I guess legacy.
I agree with that. So how do you think? What are some examples you think of how your children have changed your life?
Well, I'd say like my little girl has definitely made me a softer person, like in my thinking and nature, which it's weird because for the longest time, my sister just has girls. Mm-hmm. And so she's like, well, you probably won't be able to have a daughter, and so you'll never know what it's like. And I was like, oh, I don't care. I've got my boys. I don't need a girl. And so now it's like having my little, I don't call her a princess because, mm-hmm. I don't want her thinking that she's above other people. I want her to be down to earth and respectful. Mm-hmm. And that's, I don't think you're saying that they're royalty, but I just mm-hmm. don't want her to have a privileged mindset, I guess. But yeah, she's like my little princess, I guess you could say.
So all that to say,
yeah, I know. How stupid, huh?
No, it's funny. No, it's funny. I would agree with you. So I haven't had any boys, of course, but it's funny because I just assumed. I think me and my ex, we always assumed that we were going to have a boy, which was funny. So we were just prepared for it. I don't know if it's because I don't exactly know why. We just thought, and then we had a girl, and I was like, which I was indifferent whether we had a boy or girl. Yeah. But once we had her, I was like, it's interesting. Like the girl and father dynamic is very interesting. Yeah, because I feel the same way. So it's like a special bond, which is fun to think about. But yeah, I've talked about this question a lot actually. So it comes up a lot because fewer and fewer people are having kids these days, right? So there's actually, and it's funny because we talk about things being overpopulated, but we don't realize that actually we're not having enough kids to sustain the population that we have.
Yeah,
which is interesting because, like, if we're only having one kid, then you're talking we're going to have half the population because you think you have two people, one kid. Yeah, which is really interesting to think about. And I think some of it might be because people are career focused, and maybe we think, well, I'm not ready because I got to make sure that I have everything established before I have kids, and that makes sense to a certain extent, right? But then also I think that some people think like, well, it's going to burden my freedom, right? It's going to keep me from being able to do what I want to do, and I think it's because
to a degree,
but
it's a trade-off. I mean, I wouldn't call someone selfish for not wanting to have children. Yeah. They could be selfish, but that might not be their motive. It could be they're afraid. Yeah. They feel like they're not, or they don't want the responsibility. Yeah.
We're not capable. I've seen that too, where people just feel like, well, I don't think I'd be a good mom, and
but I think, everyone has their right to feel how they want in those situations, but you're never really ready. You never know what to expect, and every scenario is going to be different. Just because parent A tells you, oh, this is how you got to do it by the book, this is how it works, well, that might not work for parent B and parent C. But yeah, I would say your children, you have it's more than just a, generational connection. It's these little people that you care for, they reciprocate that love, and you get to instill in them. I mean, you can teach your children things, and it's their choice to pursue that or to go their own way. In that context, like you can tell them to eat their veggies, but that doesn't mean they're going to like vegetables. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's, I don't know. It's a very valuable experience. If you're going to experience life, I feel like that's, you know, one of the greatest things.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think it's funny because it's not easy, right? But then the good things kind of never are, right?
Yeah.
So if I think about that, like when you have kids, like this is what I said. One, I gained a whole new level of responsibility and understanding about myself, which I think is huge. Like I'm always like, hey, if you think you're self-aware now, have a kid, and you'll find out you'll become a lot more self-aware of, like, you know, who you are as a person, right? But like, I don't know. I just think I wouldn't trade it. And I've said this before. I wouldn't trade who I was before having a kid to who I am now, right? I still have, in my opinion, I feel like I still have as much freedom. I feel like I have more responsibility, which is actually a good thing. I feel like
you can still live your life.
Yeah,
and I think some people think that when you have a child that every choice in life has to be for them.
Yeah.
I'm not that way. I mean, I know that there's a standard that has to be met. My children have to be taken care of.
Yep.
They have to have requirements met. That, you know, obviously emotional and physical needs. But at the same rate, that doesn't mean that I don't get to be a person.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, I'm still Jonathan, and I still have things in life that I enjoy. You know, so just because you become a parent doesn't mean you have to give all that up.
Exactly. Yeah.
You might have to give some things up, but
yeah, exactly. But if you think about it, like how much more wonderful is it, instead of deciding not to do something for your kids, what if you took your kids along with you? Right? So think about like trips or whatever you might be doing that maybe you would be hesitant to take them on. I mean, think about that's like huge growth opportunities. Like going on, like traveling, them having certain experiences that maybe you've. I mean, it's all learning, right? Yeah.
Earlier this year, actually, it's always been like one of my bucket list things to do is go on a ram hunt, and so I don't really like to do things all by myself. Like, so I was like, hey, Rylan, you're the oldest. Would you like to go on a ram hunt with me? And so he's like, oh, that'd be so awesome. Yes. And so we scheduled it out, and you know, I think we scheduled it out like 2 or 3 months in advance, and we were all psyched up. We'd be like, ram hunt, you know, and he'd do it too. But yeah, that was a dream of mine to get to go do, and I got to bring him along, and it was something that he got to enjoy as well.
Yeah.
So it was an awesome experience. So I got to do a bucket list thing that I wouldn't have probably ever got to do if I wasn't working for myself as well.
Yeah.
So I had the time to do it. I could schedule that in and go do that. Yeah, it was just an awesome experience. Went to way south Texas, like not far from the border, and we spent a couple days down there driving around in a 4x4 with a guide, you know, looking for the I think the not the herd, maybe the herd of rams, and then we got to pick cars to shoot them. So it was kind of, you know, it's different. It's different hunting than whitetail. Whitetail, they see you and they run.
Yeah.
These are more of like a herd animal, so their instinctive thing is to like not run every which way, but to gather up and kind of like go off. And so, so it was kind of different. It felt like a lot easier hunting than you know. So it was different, but it was still an awesome experience.
Yeah, it's cool too. And then just thinking in general too, like when we have kids, right? If we're able to keep, obviously you got to cultivate safety, but like you're bringing up a generation that's going to help carry humanity forward, right?
Yeah,
that's the goal at the end of the day. If you think about it, like that's the goal, and hopefully to, you know, think about it like the generation before us. Anything that maybe they didn't fix, or maybe stuff they caused, it's up to us to kind of fix or to go build upon that. And it'll be up to our kids and stuff to do the same. And if we're not raising them in a way where they're able to take that on, we're not doing a disservice. We're not having kids. We don't have enough people to take on a lot of that stuff.
True.
Right?
I mean, yeah, you got to think also, like, a few generations back, they might have had like 12, 14, 15, 16 kids. I mean, that's crazy, but it's just, you know, if you had a big farm, you needed people to help you work the farm. So children,
exactly,
you know, which some people would say, oh, that's terrible, making your kids work. Not really, because they got to inherit the benefits of that, and it was, you know, something to do. It's just the way things were, and that doesn't mean they were wrong.
Exactly.
Just that's how it was.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, obviously people can choose what they want, but I like having these conversations because I think there's some people that maybe don't want to have kids, and maybe that is in their best interest, but I think that there's a lot of people, I assume, that are kind of on the fence, right? About it being like, well, maybe this isn't for me, or yada, yada, yada. And last thing I want is to have people, because, you know, a lot of time, like, a lot of us have like a window when we can have kids, and last thing we want is to have, you know, it be too late and be like, yeah, I wish I would have had kids. Yeah. And that's not I'm sure that would be one of the worst regrets.
Yeah. I mean, Elizabeth had, she was helping take care of a older lady that passed away a couple years ago now, and she and her husband had decided to not have kids, and she said, like, all the time, she's like, oh, I just regret that in life. She's like, I wish I would have had kids. I'd have someone here, you know. She's like, she was thankful for Elizabeth being there to help, but she also was like, you know, I wish I would have had a daughter or a son, and then, you know, instead of you having to be here, they could have been, you know, spending time with me, and, you know, just kind of like a regret that she had.
Exactly.
And so,
it's hard to think long term sometimes like that, right? I think a lot of times we think, I mean, it's good to be present, but I think sometimes we think like about what impacts us right now. We don't think about what's going to impact us in, you know, the John in 10 years, the John in 20 years.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people, you know, it's hard to think in some contexts like that.
For sure.
But yeah. I mean, if your thing is partying and living wild, well, there's going to come a time where those days are going to end, and you're going to have to live the rest of your life, and hopefully it won't be an empty life, you know.
For sure. Yeah. I agree. Okay. So what's a skill or talent that you could share with us?
Well, I guess there's something that I can do that maybe a lot of people couldn't do, is I like to build, well, I like music stuff, and I like music gear, obviously, but like, I started out building pedals, I don't know, several years ago, probably maybe 10 years ago. I don't know.
So these pedals?
That's just a few of them. Actually, for a few years, I would build and sell them just as a hobby, and that's kind of just like a, I don't know what you'd call it. Maybe being a tightwad. Like, some pedals, you know, will cost $400 or $500, and I was like, that's crazy. I'm like, I could probably build that thing for less than that. So I researched and researched and researched, and found a little bit of information on the web here and here and here, and eventually pieced enough together to make my first pedal. And then once I did that, I was like, wow, if I can get schematics to this thing, or layout, then I can probably build it. And so I built, I don't know, probably hundreds of pedals, different like overdrives and delays, fuzz pedals, reverbs, and different things. And that actually led into, which I remember talking to Seth about this several years ago, about, like, man, I'd love to build my own amplifier one day. And actually, I started out with pedals, and I moved into where I built 4 tube amps now.
Yeah? Do you have any here?
Yes, actually, right there.
Which one?
Both those two I built.
These two? Okay. Here, we need to show these off.
And this one as well. This one was a complete scratch build.
Okay, so which one? So we have this one here.
Yes.
Okay.
This is a reproduction of a Fender Vibreverb, and it's actually a modified circuit, and it's called Black Vibe. And my wife actually did the artwork on that.
Sweet.
But
okay, so how much of this stuff? So did you purchase some of this stuff and just do the insides, or did you build the outsides too?
I built the only thing I didn't build on that would be the chassis, the metal box that I actually put everything into.
Yeah.
So this was everything I did on that was hand done.
Nice.
The cover plate, the cab, and the grill cloth and all that.
Nice. And then you said there's also these two over here?
Yeah, and then the snakeskin one, I did the same with that. I got a chassis and then put that all together. The brown one is a Fender Bassman, model off a 59 Bassman. And that was the first one I did. The chassis on that is a kit. Or the cabinet on that's a kit. And so I actually did all the internal wiring and all the parts on that, but I didn't build the cabinet on that one. And then I have a Fender Reverb, or Deluxe Reverb, that is upstairs that I built.
Nice. Okay, cool.
And so that was kind of a fun hobby, something that I just enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
Obviously, buying more gear will make you better, so I'm the best guitarist in the world.
Because that is how
yeah, that's what my brain thinks. But
dude, it's so funny, dude. We're so different in that regard. I always had the most basic thing, and I stuck with it. As long as it worked, I was fine.
Yeah.
I've had the same like two guitars for my whole life basically. I've had that Beast, which I ran over with my car.
Yeah,
I forgot to tell that story. So it was me and Tony, and we had that empty house on the corner, and we're like, hey, we're gonna do a jam. We're just gonna jam out. And he's like, cool. He's like, I was like, so I dropped him off at the house, and I was like, oh, I forgot to tell him to go grab it. So I go in my Camaro, grab my guitar. I put it behind my car because I was gonna put it in the back, the hatch. But I was like, oh, I forgot something else. So I ran inside, came back, forgot that it was behind my car, and started driving. And I hit something and was like, huh. And I remember we always just had garbage all at our place all the time. We had random sand things, like sandbags and just random stuff. So I was like, oh, I'm just run over something silly. And instead of getting out to look, I decided well, let's just drive over it. So I drove over it, both tires. And then right when I saw what it was like, oh!
Freaked out.
So, and it made a crunch. And I just built a coffin case for it. So that was my custom, really nice coffin case I made. And that's actually what saved the guitar. The guitar got cracked on the neck. Somehow the fretboard didn't break, but the whole guitar, the whole neck was all cracked down the middle. And I remember showing up to Tony's, be like, dude, you won't believe what happened. I just ran over my guitar. He's like, that's what that noise was? He could hear it quarter mile, half mile away, just the yeah. So I was like, dang.
Oh, man.
So I luckily had my other guitar, so we played with that. But I took it to a local guy, and he glued it up, and it still works today. So so I have that one. I have the Zombie that I still never play, that I still have had forever because I hate Floyd Rose tremolo.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's fine. I still played it. Also buzzes more than I'd like, and I think I tried to have you fix that with me too, but it's I can't figure out how to get the buzzing off of that guitar.
Probably just need to raise the action just a little bit,
but then I do, and then it's something's wrong there. So I might just take that in, just to have someone hey, you know what you're doing, professional, just make this sound awesome. Because I need to play that one more. So I've had those two. I've had that crate amp forever.
Yeah.
And
I was there the day. I think I was there.
You were there the day we bought it. Yeah, I remember. Because I remember you came with me, and you're like, I was like, you think that's a good deal? Is it good? And you're like, yeah, a really good deal. Okay, I'll take it. And yeah, the thing's worked well since. I do have a short in one of the chords, or maybe it might be one of the internal things. I'll have to tell you about that offline. But yeah, so that's it. That's all I've used. I just always keep everything. But yeah, you always had like the best basses, bass amps, guitar amps. Like you just had everything, and I'm just always like, yeah, what I got works.
Yeah. Well, I guess speaking to that, yeah, I remember working with my dad back like 25, well, I don't know, probably 25 years ago or something like that. Yeah, I think I was making 15 an hour working with him doing that. So I was actually making really good money. And yeah, I'd like go in to our local music store and just like blow my whole paycheck on music stuff all the time. And I did that for like half my life. And
yeah. Oh, that's funny. But it's cool because honestly, like the things you get too are valuable. So it's not like you're ever losing money either if you decide to sell it.
It's a bit of an investment, I guess.
And I've realized that too. Like obviously, I don't collect this, but like I collect action figures and stuff like that. And I realize like everything that I collect always has value that just skyrockets. So it's not that big a deal. But I'm sure I drive everybody crazy. Like, I know I drive Chris crazy sometimes because he does art stuff, and I do the same thing with art. I have the bare minimum of art supplies, and I make it work and make stuff. And he's just like, why are you using that stuff? And he's got this whole, like, just everything you could think of for every art project. And I'm like, it works. But I know there's plenty of times where if I had a better tool, it would be better. Just like if I had maybe a different guitar or a different amp, it would probably be better. But I don't know. It's just funny.
The saying, the tone is in the fingers, it does have some truth to it.
I've never heard that saying.
Oh,
what's that mean?
That means like you can give like maybe not the best equipment, but you can make it sound fantastic.
Yeah, makes sense.
Or you can have someone that doesn't know what they're doing with the best equipment, and it still sounds like crap. So, like, you always had, it didn't matter what, like we'd take a metal zone pedal and you'd fiddle with that thing and then it would sound really good. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I couldn't get it quite sound that good.
I've always had an ear for stuff like that.
Tone.
Always, for tone and stuff, I remember I used that Lion pedal for a while.
Yeah,
I didn't like it that much.
Well, it's because it's an overdrive pedal and it was like not enough juice for metal stuff.
Yeah, well, what I found out is like I thought that was a good tone until I found the right tone on my amp myself, and I was like, oh, this sounds way better, and it was louder. For some reason, that pedal really toned down the power of my amp.
Yeah, it might not have had enough input gain to really drive the amp like it should have.
Yeah, but that was fun. But, good times. Okay, so what's something you're learning about currently that you could teach us?
Something I'm learning about currently. I don't know. I guess the only stuff I've really been doing is more business oriented, like with bids and stuff like that. And I don't know that really has a whole lot of usefulness in the context.
So what are you learning? What did you learn about bids?
Well, it's kind of like construction. I've done the work most of my life. And so if you want something built or something done or sheetrock finished, I have the know-how to do that. But as far as like bidding, that's something I just started when I started my own business, like pricing stuff out, kind of seeing in the market what prices are to do. Like that's something I never had to deal with before. And so obviously you never want to price gouge anyone, or you never want to overcharge. That's the last thing I want to do. I want to be remembered as an honest, hardworking guy that you could count on if you needed something done, that I could do it for you. And and so I guess that's kind of what I've been learning, is like how to bid accordingly for different projects. And then, of course, there's the occasional people that are like, it doesn't matter what you charge. They're just like, oh, we didn't think it would cost that much. But I mean,
well, yeah,
you know, it's like if you go buy a car right now,
yeah,
you buy a brand new pickup, it's like $80,000. So it's like,
yeah,
you know,
it's
things cost money to do. Obviously, you know,
yeah,
within the context of.
I mean, that's how it is. I mean, I remember even working at Nike, like even being a sales associate, like you have your shoes, like you know which ones are the best for certain things, or at least that's the goal. You know, so I know, like, from talking to you, like, what would be best for you, right? For at least what you're saying, so at least
Yeah.
this is what we want to try on. So I can gear there, but you're still going to have your people that are like, you know, that's a little expensive, anything in this range.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, but remember,
that's
you're
not what
also
you're wanting.
sacrificing
Yeah.
the quality of what you want, right, of what you're trying to get. Well, that's fine. So you got to, like, so even in that regard, you're going to know that there's always going to be those people that are just like, yeah, sorry, I wasn't expecting it to be that much. But the thing is if everybody's charging, if that is like market, eventually they'll either have to decide not to do it themselves, or they just come back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting. So then how do you do that? So when you do your research, are you like, so for instance, if you're doing well, do you do roofs, or what do you do exactly?
Well, I pretty much work on, like, HVAC is the only thing I don't do. But as far as like a mini split is like a fixed wall mounted air conditioning unit.
Okay.
That's like I'll do those. But pretty much everything to do on a house I'll do. And everything has its way of bidding. Like flooring, for example, is by the foot. You can do painting by square footage. A lot of stuff you can do by square footage.
Yep, makes sense.
And so there's like I guess you could say like a fair market value for the labor.
Okay.
And so.
And how do you find that out? How do you find out what the fair market is?
Well, there's lots of websites that you can actually research that.
Okay.
And what's crazy is sometimes, you know, and you can do it by zip code even to get like you know, an approximation for your area. But you can cross-reference those sometimes, depending on what it is, and they can be wildly different.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, you know, you just kind of have to well, you know, I would probably not be the type to go to the high side. I usually try to stick to the low side, which, you know, I guess that just feels better. I mean, to me, like, you know, I feel like if you're overcharging people, you're going to get a really bad reputation, and that's just going to, you won't make any money doing that.
But also makes sense in your position, though, too, just because you're starting your own construction business. It kind of makes sense to go a little on the light side, I would think, anyways.
Yeah.
From a perspective to get more jobs, I would assume.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, trying to, like, spread and expand, you know, the more you encounter with positive results.
Yeah.
Which I suppose I haven't really had any negative results. Yeah. We did one job where we had to actually bust out like about 25 feet of concrete to put plumbing in, and it actually was like 2 layers of concrete, and some parts there's actually 16 inches thick of concrete.
Dang.
So it was like a nightmare. And so we're charging so much per day on that because it's kind of hard to figure for the demo on that. And after we got it done, which I feel like it was more of he's just trying to get us to do the dirty work and get us out of there, which, you know, we made what we needed to make on it. I wouldn't want to redo that, but we got it done, and it all worked out. But.
Yeah. So then when you go into creating these bids, is there like paperwork they have to sign, or do you just tell them, or is it just
I just use an online invoice maker, and so I can make it up on the spot right there for them and kind of show them. I just keep receipt. That's the thing too. I don't charge any overhead on materials, which some people, you know, would say that's silly, and maybe it is, but at this point, I just, you know, give people the benefit of the doubt on it, and I'll just whatever materials cost, that's just what I charge. And you know, if I spend part of the day to go get it, then obviously, you know, you have to be accommodated for time as well. It's just, I think, the fair thing to do. But
for sure.
But yeah, I don't mark up anything, so I try to keep that affordable in that context too. Plus, I mean, if you send out people to get stuff, it's kind of hard to know what to get if you don't know what you're supposed to get.
Yeah.
And so that can actually be more of a time wasting thing. So, you know, sometimes it's better just to go get it yourself, know exactly what you need, and, you know, the product you like or want to work with, I guess, you know.
Makes sense. Okay, cool. So, what are you doing for fun right now?
I would say probably, you know, I still play guitar pretty regularly. That's something I do for enjoyment, obviously. I'll play Call of Duty with the boys, and which we don't really necessarily play that much. Like maybe twice a week we might come down and play for an hour or two or something like that. And then I haven't went fishing very much this year, but whenever I get some time and the weather's not too bad, you know, I don't want to go out in the middle of a storm, obviously, to go fishing, but you know, I'll do that. And I try to take the kids fishing as well because they like it pretty good. And then that's probably, I mean, I guess, you know, if we'll go out to the movies sometimes, have a family movie night.
Nice.
And that's pretty much it. Other than just maybe watching some TV at the house or something.
Okay, cool. So you're still having fun then?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. That's why I put that question on there. I gotta ask people. We gotta enjoy life, right? Okay. So, you know, we've talked about quite a few things today. So if you could sum up your life into a story from when you were born to now, what would that story be called?
Well, I guess the thing that I've always said, in retrospect, well, I don't know if it's retrospect, but in perspective, I would say when my life is over and done and gone, the thing that I want people to say or know about me, I want them to say that I was a good man. That's like kind of the thing I strive for in life. Like, we're all going to pass away, and I mean, at some point, just be a memory. But I guess if someone was to think about me, I'd want to just like, yeah, that Jon was a good dude. You know, he lived a good life. You know, did the things that a man's supposed to do for his family. You know,
yeah.
I think that's what I'd want.
So like that man was a good man.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Simple, but I think, you know, I mean, you don't have to have a legacy of extreme greatness to be great, I guess, is kind of the thing, you know.
Okay. Legacy. Talk about legacy a lot too.
Wow.
So whatever we decide is going to be the thumbnail for this video, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So we can go with either one of those. So you said, so how would you word that? Jon was a good man?
Well,
what would you?
I'm not dead yet.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm trying to think. Like,
you could say,
because you did say legacy. So
are you leaving a legacy behind? Maybe, I don't know. Or
what is your legacy or something from a question perspective?
Maybe.
What are you sold on? What are you sold on, Jon?
I mean, I think that's fine. When you think of what you pass down to your kids, like your ethics and morals that you try to instill in them. I mean, I guess I've talked about my kids a lot, but I mean, I feel like they're a big part of my life, obviously. Yeah. And I mean, you know, my wife is too, my whole family, not just my kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think really what's in, you know, in 3 generations, what's going to be remembered about us. You know, not really, probably hardly anything.
Yeah.
But what you do to instill the generations that you have is kind of the impact that you can leave that's going to make a difference, you know.
Yep.
Like, you can't make your children, you know, into perfect people, but you just try to influence them the best you know how, so that your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren will have those values. I mean, you know, you can only do so much, but you do the best you know you can do, that you know to do, to try and you know, it's not necessarily about me. I don't care to be remembered as some magnificent, oh, your great-grandpa was the most cool dude. You know, I don't care about that. If they know that I love them and I did my best to give them a good life, then I think that would be a win.
Okay. I like that. Okay, I agree. So, what is your legacy? You like that?
That sounds nice.
I think so too. Okay, cool. Okay. So now we have 2 questions left. So one, this is kind of your opportunity to share whatever you want with the audience. So if there's anything, if you wanted to share your business now, do a business plug. If you wanted to share social, anything that you want to say that we haven't talked about, this is kind of like that time if you want to use it.
Okay. Well, I guess something that's very valuable and important to me in life is faith. You know, I feel like in our day and age, maybe that's not as valued as it once was. You know, I try to follow Jesus, and I have my own specific reasons for why. You know, I've witnessed to people before, and I don't tell them, oh, you need to get saved or you're going to go to hell. I don't tell them stuff like that. I say, I believe in God because I've seen him at work in my life through things that, you know, there's no other way to explain them. And so what I'll tell people is I hope that they experience God and that God can become real for them if they don't know God or if they are even against God, you know.
Yeah.
I guess that would be something I would see a value to say. If you don't know God, I hope that you would open your eyes and that he would reveal himself to you, because I believe in God. I feel like he's real, and I think he's made a big impact in my life.
Yeah, I like it. Okay. Anything else, or is that?
I think that would be all right. I think that's good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, awesome. So how I like to end these podcasts is I like to have the previous guest make a question for the next guest. So you're going to answer that question first, and then you're going to create a question for the next person that we'll have on here. Okay, so you ready for your question?
Okay.
Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay. What is one regret that you've had, and what have you learned as a result?
A regret that I've had. Maybe kind of like I talked about before, kind of being too hard on myself about some things that were really not even things to be critical of myself about. I would say that would be a regret, because that's a lot of negativity that I put on myself that it didn't help anything, didn't improve anything. And so obviously if I could go back and talk to myself, I would kind of try and explain some of that, like, you know, relax. you don't have to have everything figured out, and just do your best and keep going, and you'll make it where you want to go.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. Okay, so now what question do you want to leave for the next person?
I don't know. I guess maybe more of a silly, maybe a fun question.
Okay, yeah.
If you could be any animal, what would you want to be?
Okay. Do you have an answer for this?
Well,
because why did you pick this? I'm really curious about this question.
Okay. Well, ducks are actually my favorite animal, and probably because growing up we had chickens and ducks and guineas and geese and goats and cows and all that. But ducks are always my favorite, and I think it's because a couple reasons. They're a real peaceful animal. They're not aggressive. They don't hurt anything. So they're like the ultimate nice animal, kind of. When they're little, they'll follow you around like you're their mother, and so I thought that was always kind of cute. But the saddest thing about ducks is like they have no real defense other than flying away, and so we would always, for some reason, I'd have like a duck that I really liked, and it would get murdered brutally by like a dog, or a raccoon would eat its head off, or something crazy, and I don't know why, but yeah, they're my favorite animal. And so I guess thinking about that, if you could, I wouldn't want to necessarily be a duck because, like I said, they're brutalized by like every animal that can eat them.
Okay.
But obviously being like a bird and flying would be pretty cool. You'd go visit anywhere you wanted practically.
I agree. I've always wanted to fly. I always thought that'd be fun. But I don't think I'd be a duck.
Yeah.
But I won't tell you what I'm going to be because I'm saving that for the 20th episode Q&A. So I'm just making a plug there. So that's what I like to do. So I did a 10 episode one. So the first 10 guests, I took all their questions and answered those. So when I do the 20, I'll answer yours and you'll get to see my answers to that. So cool. It's a good question. I like it. Well, John, this was awesome. That was it. Anything else you want to share before we close out?
I don't guess.
Yeah.
I think we covered a lot of good things.
Yeah. Well, thanks, John. Like, I know when I first started this podcast, I made a list of people I wanted on it. You were on that list, so I'm so glad we got to have the conversation. So I know, and we have that special episode that's going to have you on it too. So I'm glad we got to do this. So I'm sure we'll do it again.
All right.
Okay.
It was a good time.
It was a good time. Should we do strength and honor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It has been a bit.